This week, bad Chrome extensions, security holes, ARC processors are under attack for the first time even, ICS woes, and thanks Oracle. Jason Wood from Paladin Security joins us for expert commentary on testing your detection tools. So stay tuned for this episode of Hack Naked News. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show that brings you the security news each week. And despite popular belief, we do wear pants. It's Hack Naked News.
Most of the organizations I work with, they have
released. Yes, you read it.
actually do.
The original Linux kernel security with Linux kit.
So I hope everybody has their resistance built up.
Brought to you by, do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these things can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending these assets? Have you penetration tested these public assets? Start 2017 by taking a proactive approach to securing your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com and see how they can help you sleep better at night. Welcome everyone to this edition of Hack Naked News. It's episode 157, and it is Tuesday, January 16th, 2018. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios, where we're on revision 3.2 of the Hack Naked News set. Almost complete. It's getting there. It's so close now. I can smell it. Before we get into the news this week, check out our on-demand material. Some of our previously recorded webcasts are now available on demand. There's 5 there. You're just going to go register for them. securityweekly.com/on-demand. Go there. It's fantastic content that is produced in collaboration between the Security Weekly hosts and our sponsors. So if you want some of the hilarity that happens on these shows to extend into a webcast where we forced our sponsors to share useful information, which really wasn't that much of a stretch because we love the sponsors that we collectively choose to share information on the show. So make sure you check that out, securityweekly.com/on-demand. Domain Tools is also hosting a webcast. We're going to poo-poo logs. Michael's going to be here this week. In fact, his plane lands today. We're going to poo-poo logs and talk about pivoting through malicious infrastructure and how to use domains and IP addresses as useful information rather than going down the rabbit hole into the abyss of logs, which I don't agree with at all. And so if you disagree, tune in, securityweekly.com/domain tools, register today. And now, the security news. 4 malicious Google Chrome extensions affect 500,000 users. The Iceberg security research team discovered 4 malicious Google Chrome extensions during a routine investigation of anomalous traffic. It's a great technical read. You should go check out the blog post in the show notes, wiki.securityweekly.com. Again, this is episode 157. Great technical read. So more than 500,000 users, including workstations and businesses around the world, have been affected by these vulnerabilities. Essentially, it works for the attacker because the extensions can download JavaScript on the fly via JSON that executes basically a clickjacking, ad-clicking campaign for the attackers. The solution's not an easy one. I mean, unless you uninstall all of your extensions. Of course, we could say we'd audit all of the code for the extensions, but it's really hard because of the way this attack was carried out. On the surface, the extension doesn't look malicious. So make sure you check that article out, as I thought it was a really good one. A flaw in a popular client called Transmission, is a BitTorrent client, lets hackers control your PC remotely. Critical vulnerability has been discovered in the widely used Transmission BitTorrent app that could allow attackers, again, to execute malicious code on BitTorrent users' computers. The vulnerability has been uncovered by Google's Project Zero vulnerability research team, and one of its researchers, the infamous Tavis Ormandy, has also posted a proof of concept of the attack just 40 days after the report. 40 days, you say? But Paul, Google's policy is 90 days. Well, usually they do give vendors 90 days. But in this case, Tavis basically doesn't feel good about this particular vendor's ability to patch, so hence he released the proof of concept. A fix is coming soon, in air quotes, coming soon. However, there are other unnamed torrent clients that are also vulnerable, so beware if you are using BitTorrent clients. Configuration errors in Intel workstations being labeled a security hole. F-Secure has discovered a new vulnerability in Intel's AMT, and according to researchers, it's pretty bad. And I quote, "The attack is almost deceptively simple to enact, but it has incredible destructive potential. In practice, it can give the local attacker complete control over an individual's work laptop, despite even the most extensive security measures." That's right. If you got something like a BIOS password, it basically can bypass a lot of those measures. And this is from the researcher Harry Sintonen from F-Secure, who found the bug. This is an implementation flaw and requires that the motherboard manufacturers change the process, essentially requiring that in order to access this feature in something like software, to require the user to enter that BIOS password. So it's more of an attack on the functionality, and with all the Meltdown and Spectre happening, this one is flying under the radar, which is why I wanted to bring it up today. A new Mirai Okiru botnet targets devices running a widely used ARC processor. ARC, or Argonaut RISC Core, embedded processor, is the world's most popular CPU core that's being shipped in more than 2 billion products every year, including cameras, mobile, utility meters, televisions, flash drives, automotives, and all of the other Internet of Things. According to reports, this is the first time we've ever seen malware targeting this platform. There's also speculation that we will see a massive DDoS attack that will take down the internet. However, that's always the speculation with this attack, and only time will tell. VMware releases security updates for Workstation and Fusion. Workstation and Fusion contain a use-after-free vulnerability in the VMware NAT service when IPv6 mode is enabled. This issue could allow a guest to execute code on the host, and patches are available, and you should apply them. Probably today, like probably right now. Meltdown and Spectre patches are causing issues with individual companies, industrial control companies, I should say. Speaking of patches and why you should maybe not apply them, several industrial equipment manufacturers have reported problems with the fixes for security vulnerabilities disclosed in Meltdown and Spectre attacks. Rockwell Automation has reported a dozen errors that are appearing in its factory talk-based products after installing Microsoft's Meltdown and Spectre patches for Windows systems. No different than any other industry, I suppose, except this one controls things like, your power and water and things like that. Oracle still silent on Meltdown, but does list some patches for x86 devices among the 233 new fixes that came from Oracle. Oracle still has nothing to say about whether the Meltdown or Spectre vulnerabilities are a problem for its hardware. Big Red today offered the Register, who reported this story, no comment, making it notable absentee from Intel's list of x86 vendor advisories on how to handle these attacks. Thanks, Oracle. And with that, we're going to take a very quick break and bake, and I'm going to go get my cookies from the oven, and then we're going to come back with Jason Wood. Stay tuned. This episode is brought to you by IT Pro TV, binge-worthy learning for IT teams. Why is it binge-worthy? It's learning presented in an engaging and entertaining talk show format that beats voice-over PowerPoint snooze fests. IT Pro TV offers an on-demand course library with more than 3,300 hours of content. Watch on your desktop, on the go, or in the comfort of your own living room. IT Pro TV is IT training you and your team actually want to watch, which means a better return on your learning investment. Get started with IT Pro TV for Teams with a special offer for Security Weekly listeners. Visit itpro.tv/Security Weekly to start a 7-day free trial and get 30% off a standard or premium IT Pro TV membership using the code SECWeekly30. And we're back from our break and bake. No, we're back. And if you're baking and you want to learn about IT and IT security stuff, maybe while stuff is in the oven, you can go to itpro.tv/Security Weekly. They are now accepting requests for demos of the IT team solution. So if you're listening and you work for a company and you want everyone to have access to a fabulous library of over 3,300 hours of training, make sure you go to itpro.tv/security weekly. It's awesome. And you really can do it at home while you're baking and watch it on any number of devices, including mobile and in the comfort of your own living room. Now, do I have any more announcements? I think I covered all those. I think I'm done with announcements. I'm going to turn it over to Jason Wood because Jason's awesome. He's from Paladin Security and is here today to talk about, what are you talking about today? Testing your detection tools. Jason, welcome.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
I'm a little loopy today, as you can already notice.
That's all right. Some days are like that, I guess.
So yeah, too much bourbon in the coffee.
Oh, there you go. Trying to keep warm out there still.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about testing your detection tools. And this story leapt out at me really for a couple of different reasons. Just from past experiences, both as a security engineer and systems administrator, as well as being on the other side of doing penetration testing. So the original source was a blog post on the DFR and threat hunting blog written by Jack Crook. And Jack started off making a point that, at some point during an intrusion, an attacker is going to start moving laterally around inside your environment. And they're going to usually do this using tools that are built into the Windows operating system. And one of his comments that this is the part that kind of got my attention was to ask yourself if the tools that you have in place are capable of alerting you as to what may be happening regarding this idea of when they move laterally using Windows, built-in Windows commands and functionality. Now, this jumped out at me for a couple different reasons. One, I'm sure you all have sat in on sales presentations with your vendor about a security product that you're looking at that is ultra hardened, detects everything, and will make you a cup of coffee in the morning. And then sometimes later, maybe you find some difficulties there. But it also jumped out at me because as a penetration tester, we would do this. We would get into an environment, start beating up on it, and we would have customers comment on the idea that we would essentially become invisible to them. A lot of our tools are built around the idea of, hey, we're going to catch something, activity using some kind of hacker tool, right? We're going to look for port scans. We're going to look for exploits being run, malware, things like that. But they're not really tuned in on operating system functionality. And one of my favorite penetration tests, I think, that I've ever worked on was actually an on-site that we did. And we call them ride-alongs. And what essentially ended up happening is we're sitting here testing, and we had one person who was running back and forth between the room we were in and back to the blue team. And he would say, hey, we were seeing this and this. Was that you? And we'd say yes or no, as the case may have been. And then he'd run back and have some, comments with his blue team. But when we hit the end of the assessment, he made the comment in the debrief. He said, it was really interesting to see where we could watch you and where you disappeared from view. And it was a really good feeling, I think, to see that, hey, we really helped these guys. They had learned a lot about their tools. So let's go back to Jack's post here. We have these tools that we've implemented in our environment, and he's focusing on endpoint detection and response tools in his post, but I think it applies to a lot of others as well, is the idea of how do we test to make sure that our systems are actually set up right or have the capability to do what they say that they're going to do. And to help with that end, he actually has created a number of simple batch files that you can run on a system that you can see what your endpoint detection tools are picking up. And as I'm looking at these scripts, like I said, they're simple little batch scripts. But we're emulating things like command and control, some beaconing rather out to command and control, regular communication with some IP address, or things like looking around your network for other hosts, all of a sudden scanning to different IP addresses, launching command.exe. I've done this a number of times. You pop a box, you get on a system, you start looking around the environment, and you start using the net command to look for information, or netstat, or what have you, to start finding out some information to the system and where you can go from here. So what, can these tools pick it up? Well, here are some scripts you could set up on your systems to try this out. Now, he talks about the idea of using this to test just your endpoint detection tools or your security tools themselves. I also like the idea of using this as a point to potentially train some analysts. So let's make some activity occur, and then use that as a way of training some more inexperienced folks on what they're looking for and why we're looking for that, and what does it look like inside of our tools. Certainly, I think this is a great point. I really like the idea of doing the training, using it as a training opportunity. Too many times we get folks who get hired, put into a spot, and then we're kind of cut loose. You also run into too many situations where you're given a system to implement in your environment, but you don't have great test plans set up to make sure that it's actually going to do what they say it's going to do. And so here are some simple scripts that you can use to turn around and try and emulate some of this activity and honestly expand on it. I mean, it sparked some ideas. I was reading through it and I was like, hey, this is really cool, but I've done this and this before. What would happen if I tried that? Would these tools pick it up? Would an analyst pick it up? Really recommend checking it out. The link to this article is in the wiki.securityweekly.com, like Paul said, episode 157. But think about the systems that you're implementing in your environment. How are you going to test them to make sure that they're actually doing what you expect, that they're collecting the information you need and doing alerting properly? Maybe you've got a tool that isn't capable of it. Maybe you've got a tool that's not quite set up right. But here are some quick ways to start validating that you're getting what you need out of your systems. And
so, Jason, I have some pretty strong feelings about this tactic, and I have to say that I absolutely love it. And the reasons that I love this particular category of tools, and it's interesting, I do recommend that you look at some of the commercial tools in this environment. We are not sponsored that I know of by any company in this particular vertical yet, but it is a category that I'm in love with because I'm in love with the problem. And the problem is I've got all these security solutions, and they've even got trained analysts, and I don't know if any of them actually work. Like, I don't know if the analyst can actually find the problems, and I don't know if any of my security tools are actually being effective. So rather than focus on detecting vulnerabilities, detecting threats, detecting exposures in my systems, or detecting malware or preventing malware, I want a system that's going to go test my defenses directly and tell me what are the ways that if something did get in, how can they get around my defenses and test my security products and test my security people. And while penetration testing does play a role in this, what if you were able to do this and orchestrate this as a regular process that happens all of the time in your environment? And that's what some of the commercial tools in this space provide. I haven't used any of them personally, but I like the strategy a lot. So I'm in love with the problem, in love with the proposed solutions. And so you should go seek out some vendors in the space, because I think if you're going to put some area and some budget, you want something that it can infect a system very safely and also log and monitor what it's able to do and report back to you at scale. And while you could build something like that yourself, if you did, you should probably put it on the market as a product that people will buy, because it's a lot of work to get there. I mean, essentially, You're building your own command and control infrastructure that you can modify and change to suit your needs and use it to measure how well you're doing in certain areas of your security defenses.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. The idea of, hey, yeah, you could roll your own system. It's not like it's something impossible, right? We've got attackers who are doing this sort of stuff in a manner that we don't like. But let's face it, we all are getting hit with meetings. We've got all kinds of deadlines to hit. One of the things I thought as I was reading this post was, hey, here's some great starting points to start to do some of this testing that I can quickly use and implement because, well, I'm hammered for time already.
Well, and Jason, so, I'm going to stop you there. You bring up a great point. I love using free or open source tools to prove the value in the organization, and that's exactly what you're talking about. So I'm not poo-pooing, open source or free tools. What I'm saying is use those to prove value. Say, hey, I got this free thing, and look, I configured it to do this one thing, and I discovered that if we changed our processes, we would detect this scenario. And by the way, if we could do this all the time in a more comprehensive manner if we had this commercial solution. That, I think, is a great value proposition because you've proved it its usefulness, and then expanding on it should increase the value, and that can oftentimes help justify the cost.
Good point. I like it.
Jason, that's awesome. Love that article. Thank you so much for appearing on this edition of Hack Naked News. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.